Hey you guys, I'm happy to be back. How are you? I didn't mean to disappear on you. I started channeling a collective reading with the Black Moon Astrology deck while I was prepping it because this is a more complex deck. With every single card, I kept channeling deeper and deeper information. I started this like at the beginning of February, and it literally took me the last month to finish. I could say prepping it, but with, like I said, it was channeling with each card. So pretty much like writing down everything I was channeling as I went through the cards. And I was being stubborn and I didn't want to do anything else until I finished this. And it just took me a little while because I'm juggling life also. So I'm finally ready to record for you and I'm excited to go through everything. This is going to be a little different from what I've done in the past. And I don't anticipate doing videos like this all the time, but I guess we'll see because Spirit is kind of like evolving my work a little bit. Not a huge ton, but just like in little baby steps. Like I said, I've been juggling life. Things have been crazy since December, really, as I've been adjusting to different transitions. If you saw my previous video earlier in February or end of January, Etsy is changing their policies and removing services from their website. So I'm having to make transitions with my business for that reason, plus these other little ways Spirit is nudging me. So we'll see how things move forward in terms of what Spirit is going to have me doing, where Spirit is going to have me focusing. So, and even this video, I'm not exactly sure how it's going to go because, like I said, this is a little different. So it is, the intention from the start was a twin flame energy update. But now that I think back to when I started it with the Chinese New Year. And that was right around the 2-2 portal also. So what I ended up channeling is a mixture of twin flame reading, ascension updates, and just general collective information. And it's all combined. So like I said, with each card, we're going to have information for you as a twin flame, for the world and globally, for the ascension process and new earth, and other bits and pieces as they resonate and as they apply to different people and things and situations. So I really feel like the Spirit just wants to talk to you guys. And it's a reading, and it's an ascension talk, and it's a twin flame talk, all combined into one. So, and I have what I wrote down, and I fully expect to channel on the spot as well. So we're just going to see how it goes. And I'm going to try to be like, what is the word I'm looking for? Efficiently timed. That's not exactly the right word, but anyway, you know what I mean. I'm going to try and be quick because, I don't know, some people like longer videos, some people like shorter videos, whatever. But I'm going to try and not, do super long, but just going to depend on the time it takes me to go through the channeling that I prepared ahead of time, plus whatever's going to come through on the spot. And what was I just going to say? Literally, it left my brain. Well, anyway, I did pull, even though the bulk of the messages came through while prepping the Black Moon Astrology deck, I did pull from the Akashic Records for a twin flame update as well, and from the Oracle of the Seven Energies to get some insight into what the Divine Masculine and the Divine Feminine are going through primarily right now. And I see the patterns for both sides with all of the astrological events happening, with the Chinese New Year, with the stage of ascension, with the 222. For me, I've been saying the 2-2 through the 222 portal gateway. I strongly felt and was guided by Spirit that it was an entire gateway in February, not just like the 2-2, not just the 222. And then on top of that, literally, like right before I recorded my 222 meditation, I saw a post from Magenta Pixie that says, February 22nd presents awakening, activation, and opportunity. The twin flame gateway stands open, allowing for genetic transmutation through photonic crystalline light. The 222 is the Trinity Bridge, presenting such opportunity for seeding into the trifurcation and choice points. This bridge begins on the 22nd of February and connects through March into the spring equinox 3-day portal through one calendar month to March 22nd. A lot of that, I know a lot of the way she speaks and the wording can be confusing if you don't understand it. It's primarily ascension oriented, but what stuck out to me for our purposes is the Trinity Bridge she speaks about from February 22nd through the equinox. She specifically says March 22nd, even though I know technically if you look up the equinox date, it says March 20th, but she's getting this from Spirit, so March 22nd. So this made me realize that the gateway is even more significant than just 22 through 222. It actually extends further than that to the equinox. And accordingly, like I read this, I actually might have read it the actual day that I recorded the 222, which was 222, of course. And yes, it was, because that's when she posted it. So I read it right before I recorded it. And what ended up happening when I was recording the 222 was that at the end, Spirit kind of did what they did in October with the October transmission and the 1111 portal. They're combined. It was like a part 1 and a part 2. The October and November one ended up being a Kundalini activation, as well as protections that come along with October. So for this one, Spirit had me go through a whole thing for the 222, and now we're going to do the second part for the equinox. So since I ended up bringing this up, let me go ahead and tell you guys about that real quick. You can reach out to me privately if you want to get those meditations. It was 22 for the 222 one, and it'll likely be 22 for the equinox one as well. Excuse my dog in the background. So for the 222, we basically astral traveled up into the void, the space between worlds, and rested on the wings of the Elohim and integrated fluorescent blue divine light frequency energy, as well as ultraviolet rays in the rainbow colors. Why can't I talk? The ultraviolet divine light. Excuse me, I mixed it up together. Why can't I talk, Nala? What's going on? The fluorescent blue divine light frequency, there you go, is connecting directly to source energy and is a truth for frequency that you absorb, meant to help you see, hear, and integrate the truths that are in the process of being revealed in the world as a whole, not just in your individual lives. Helping you connect to and integrate your soul truths and activate your soul missions and authentic lives and purposes. It's a divine truth light soaking into your whole aura and every energy center, bringing clarity, alignment, peace, and stillness within, oneness, and universal knowing. And then the ultraviolet rays, they're the rainbow colors covering the whole spectrum so that each individual person will receive what they need to, for whichever chakra, to help balance and raise your energy centers and frequencies as needed. And then after that, we were each visited by specific spiritual beings that you were meant to connect with, whether it's ascended masters, angels, galactic beings, elementals, anyone, whoever was meant to be. There were certain ones that I specified and more that came through. I don't even remember if I said this during the recording, but I'm getting right now that unicorns were there also. So anyway, so that was very powerful. Even how this came to me before I recorded it was really powerful, because as I was asking Spirit what I would be doing, I just had a random video playing, and as I was trying to understand what we were going to be integrating, the video literally said fluorescent blue frequency, light frequency. And I don't remember what Spirit was telling me at the time, but I like caught it and I was like, what? Is that it? And the Spirit's like, yes, that. Pay attention to what it's saying right now. So I was divinely guided to listen to that video for it to explain it to me. So that was pretty cool. But anyway, so at the end, after we absorbed all of that, and after we received specific guidance or gifts or whatever it was that the spiritual beings were extending to us, that is when this part I have to go from memory because it happened right on the spot. A pathway was revealed, made out of, it was laid with blue crystals, variety, like pick a type, like a variety of type of blue crystals, and lined with emeralds and amethysts and other green and purple crystals as well, because they are representing the different light frequencies of significance for this. And there, it was leading to the Trinity Bridge, as Magenta Pixie spoke of. And the Trinity Bridge was leading us to the Temple of Golden Wisdom and other realms in the astral where we would be going next. And that next is what's to be continued for the Equinox portal. I have to show you, I have this bismuth piece that I just love. And when I saw it, I had to have it because it reminds me of the temples in the astral realm that I see when I'm meditating them. I like to call the one like the Emerald City, and this makes me think of the Emerald City, and so I had to get it. But anyway, so that's what we did for the 222 and where we will be headed for the equinox. Hold on one second. I'm confusing myself. It might have been an amethyst and then lined with blue and emeralds. But in any case, yes, is a purple Trinity Bridge. It was paved with amethyst and then it was lined with the emerald and the blue crystals. Lapis lazuli was one, but it was not the only one. And I don't know the crystals as well, the names of the crystals as well. Sorry about my squeaky vanity chair too. This vanity was passed down to me from my mother. It's very old, and so it squeaks. I don't even notice it, and then I realize, oh, that's probably really annoying. But anyway, so like I said, that the Purple Trinity Bridge is going to bring us to the Temple of Golden Wisdom, the Halls of Learning, the Akashic Records, Shambhala, the Halls of Amenti, and other places for studying with the Ascended Masters and higher spiritual beings in the astral when we complete this. Oh, so Spirit gave me a title for this one. A meeting of the highest spiritual minds to bless us for our journey. And what I know right now is that we will be retrieving special amulets or other gifts meant for each of us individually. We will meet with our loved ones who may have special messages for us. We will meet with our spirit team and meet our spirit guides. Oh yeah, this is actually something different. You are going to meet any specific special spirit guides that you have for your life journey. And in addition to, and what's next, we will meet our angels and ascended master teachers for any particular lessons or wisdom we are meant to receive. And together they are all going to create a unique item for each of us to take with us to help us on our journeys. So I'm super excited about that. And like I said, message me if you want to get these meditations. Right now, I'm still working on setting up my shop on my website because, for one thing, there's not enough time in the day and I have to focus on, like, even though it's important, it's not the most important thing in my day-to-day life, I guess you could say, like income producing activities, taking care of my daughter, all the day-to-day life stuff, orders, those are taking priority. And so I just haven't had time to complete it, and it's a process. And my Etsy shop has readings, but it does not have anything else right now because of Etsy changing their policies. So just message me until I can finish getting that stuff set up. What was I gonna say? I think that's everything. So let me get into this. I wasn't gonna discuss that yet, but then it just came up naturally, so why not? while I'm at it, since I did talk about spirit naturally nudging me in baby steps in evolving a little bit in my work and what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, I'm kind of curious. Spirit seems to be nudging me in the direction of starting a podcast, and I'm kind of curious what you guys think about that. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot of work. So yeah, I'm pondering, but I would love to know if you guys would be interested in that. So let me know. Let me know your thoughts. But anyway, okay, let's get into this. And yeah, okay. So I'm just going to start with the first card, and whatever channeling comes through also. If I go on a tangent, I go on a tangent, okay? I asked when I pulled the cards in the first place, what do you need to know right now? Either what do you need to know, or what does Spirit want to tell you as far as the collective energies at this moment in time, which was really with the start of the Chinese New Year and going into the 220, well, let's just say the February portal, okay? And obviously this is carrying forward into the present energies since this has been ongoing anyway. So the first card we have is the Moon, which also says soul, which that automatically tells you you need to focus on connecting to your higher self and to your soul, right? Okay. The meaning of this card is, hold on a second. Did I? No, I didn't. All of these cards have a corresponding tarot card. And I usually wrote that as well. I think this is the one time I didn't, but I'm pretty certain it's the High Priestess anyway. So, which goes back to connecting with your higher self. I almost always immediately pick up what is the natural, immediate, intuitive connection that I'm making based on both the secondary word or words and the corresponding tarot. And so between Soul and High Priestess, just like I said, this is a significant time of connecting with your higher self, your intuition, and integrating that. I think I talk about this a lot, about how this, with the twin flame journey, it's a spiritual rebirth process. You are shedding the old version of yourself and you're integrating your higher self. I don't think that people really fully realize what that means. It is a little hard to wrap your head around, but a long time ago now, I channeled about what happened in Atlantis with the fall of Atlantis and the separations that happened during that time. And one of the things that I felt at a soul level, like my soul remembering what it felt like, was when that happened, it wasn't just the fall of Atlantis. It was Earth descending and coming down from like 5D, 4D to 3D. And I literally felt like the pain of our higher selves being separated from our 3D bodies, because down in the third density, we cannot hold that higher density and crystalline light body that our higher selves have. So it was like, it brought me to tears. It was like definitely emotionally painful. I'm sure it was physically painful at the time. I don't think I felt physical pain when I channeled that or remembered it. But what I'm trying to say is that just where that was split, where our physical bodies and our higher selves were split and torn apart, now they are merging back together for ascension. They're merging back together as part of the ascension process. And our twin flame journey is helping to facilitate that, because the twin flame journey is a massive spiritual awakening, ascension process, and spiritual rebirth. And it's your higher self reintegrating into your body, birthing this new version of you, birthing the true version of you. The 3D version of you, it is true, but it's been, gosh, what is the word? It's just been messed with so much, because in the third density, on 3D Earth. It's been controlled by the dark for so long, and there's so much evil, and I guess you could just look at it as different facets of evil, but so many people in the 3D reality, you know, manipulating, twisting things, lying, conditioning your 3D minds and ego centers to be further and further separated from your higher selves, disconnected from your intuition. So, I don't know if you can hear the cat also. Never mind. Anyway, so there's so much that has been done to us in this 3D reality over an entire planetary soul ascension cycle, 26,000 years to humanity, that, I mean, DNA manipulation. There's so many things that have been done to us and happened to us that our conscious minds have been so far removed from our higher selves that re-merging them back together is a painful process in and of itself. And that's part of the reason why I love calling it a spiritual rebirth, because you're literally going through like labor and delivery, except that it is yourself. It is a new version of yourself. Part of the reason why this process can be so painful at times is because you're shedding, and I was going to say discarding, but that's not exactly the right word, but you're shedding and releasing the old version of yourself and birthing the new version of yourself. And that is a painful process. So this is really here, like, this makes perfect sense to me. And we are at a critical time in ascension for this occurring. So it makes complete sense that it's the first card out, Spirit saying, like, you need to focus on this process, and you can make it easier for yourself by focusing on connecting to your higher self. I don't even remember where or how this came to me. I think it was a combination of channeling and just from following spiritual teachers and guidance. I don't follow a ton, but there's a few people that I trust enough. And I just know that we are at a critical stage in ascension at this time. Beginning of 2025, beginning of the new Chinese New Year, and actually the Equinox is also the true New Year, because it was changed. New Year's was changed by the Romans however many hundreds of years ago. And that, combined with the astrological transits and the events happening in the world, and I feel like there's a missing piece that I'm not talking about that I don't remember at this exact moment. But in any case, I just know that at this particular time, this is a significant transition point for ascension. And we are really, it's like Spirit has us in a vice, and we are really being pushed to fully release and shed anything that is holding us back in our old life, in the old version of ourselves, to be able to fully embody what's next for us. And I know part of this is something that I learned on a spiritual webinar as well. And she was talking about, and we're going to talk about this more in a little bit, but she was talking about the different timelines right now. This is about the bifurcation process. And if you haven't heard that word before, you can hear more about it if you follow other spiritual teachers. I'm not going to really go in depth. I don't talk about that stuff a ton because I'm trying to be understandable for everyone, or for as many people as possible. But basically, the bifurcation process is the ascension process, in that humanity and the world is splitting into these two versions. It's the version that is not ascending, and it's the version that is ascending, essentially. And we've just reached a certain stage in this bifurcation process where the distinction between the two timelines and the people who are on each of them is more and more obvious and more difficult to navigate, because the people on the lower timeline who are not ready to ascend yet, they are They are in one reality that, let's not talk about that yet. We will come back to it. But they're in one reality that they see and feel and believe to all be true. And then the people on the higher ascension timeline they're in a different reality that looks very similar, and the people on the higher timeline can see the other one, can see the lower one. They can see what's happening on it. They can see the people in it, but it doesn't, the lower energy events don't affect them as long as they stay in the higher frequency of the higher timeline. If they let fear energy get to them, it brings them down into the lower timeline, and then they can be affected by those things. So it's very distinct of these two separate realities. The people on the higher timeline can see what's happening on the lower timeline, but the people on the lower timeline cannot see everything on the higher timeline. You know, they can see the people, of course, but there are truths that they can't see. There are truths and ascension events and happenings that they can't see or they can't understand. That is going back to the 222 meditation I was talking about. That's why everyone was integrating the fluorescent blue divine light frequency to help be able to differentiate between the ascension events and be able to see everything clearly, to not be stuck on the lower timeline. Now, I do want you to understand that the people on the lower timeline, like, it's not that they're never going to ascend. They have one more lifetime. They have one more lifetime to reincarnate and to complete their awakening process and to ascend, because ascension is not an overnight process. The people who are on the ascension timeline now, their souls agreed in their soul contract before incarnating in this lifetime that they're assisting with the beginning of the ascension process, and they're completing it all in this lifetime. I don't know exactly what age that will be for everyone, but you know, this is what I've been told, that they're completing it in this lifetime. I have also been told that as you ascend and you integrate your crystalline light body, the aging process changes as well. So keep that in mind too. I'm sure there's lots of questions about aging and all that stuff, but we're not going to get into that right now, okay? When I look around, it's because of my animals doing stuff or making sounds or whatever. But anyway, so the people on the lower one, their souls more than likely have contracted to assist with the end of the ascension process. So that's why they're not ready yet in this lifetime. They're going through what they are still learning, still meant to go through, still awakening and preparing for whatever is next for them. And they will have one more lifetime to go through to complete their ascension process. And that's okay. One of the biggest things that I see people asking is, what about my parents? What about my brothers and sisters? What about my best friend? What about my kids? I'm ascending and I see and understand all of this stuff clearly, and these people don't. What happens? What do I do? Will I lose them? How does this work? And a lot of people want to know what they can do to help their loved ones ascend. And here's the thing. You need to understand that every soul already knows. Their soul knew before incarnating what the plan was for this lifetime. You need to understand that souls have predestined paths. Like, it might not be completely 100% laid out. It might be more general, and then adjustments are made as needed. But the big stuff, like when you're born, when you die, and if you're ascending or not, like, that's all known before incarnating. So it's not anybody's responsibility to get anyone else, across that finishing line. Like, each soul has their own soul journey. And even if it's your best friend or your mom or your child, like, you have to respect that they have their own soul journey that they need to go through, and you need to allow them to do that also. You can help teach them. You can help them awaken by sharing information and doing the best you can. But if they reject it and reject that information, there's nothing you can do about it. If they are open to it, then you can teach them. And then they're probably more likely to be ascending as well. But anyway, so that's important to understand. Sorry, I have an itch in the middle of my back where I can't reach it, and that sucks. Anyway, so I feel like I went off on a tangent. What a surprise. I was expecting it. But just know that right now, integrating your higher self, stepping into your power as stepping into your high priestess gifts and abilities and energy is all important right now as you integrate your higher self, as you integrate your higher wisdom and knowledge to help your ascension process, and understand that we are at that critical phase right now. And you need to focus on staying in the higher frequencies for the higher timeline and not letting yourself get pulled down to the lower timeline, okay? We are going to talk more about those timelines, but I think that's that should be a good place for now. What I wrote down, it's time to rise in your power, tune into your gifts and abilities, trust your intuition, and let your higher self lead. As you are, especially if you're more in the beginner stages of this, as you are connecting with your intuition, it's important to understand the difference between like your intuition and instincts and conditioning, because I see a lot of people will sometimes think that they think that like the first thing that automatically comes to their mind sometimes is their intuition. And while it should be, if they are more connected with their ego center and more connected with their 3D conditioning, then that immediate instinctual reaction is more likely to be fear-based than it is to be intuitive. So learning how to differentiate those, learning how to separate them and understand. I like to explain it as the ego center is like the little devil on one shoulder, and your higher self or your intuition is like the little angel on your other shoulder. And when you can learn how to understand the difference between what they are both sound like, feel like, all that stuff, then you're able to lead from your higher self instead of from your ego center. It is a very tricky process and hard to explain. And honestly, it takes time and practice. It's not something you figure out overnight. I mean, one of the biggest things I can tell you about listening to your higher self and your intuition is that you don't realize how strong it is because it's so subtle. Like when you're hearing your own thoughts in your head, that's usually your intuition or your higher self speaking to you. But people don't realize it because they just think it's their thoughts. But because it's very uncommon to hear any other voice inside your head. Excuse me. But yes, it's more often than not, it's your higher self or your intuition telling you the answers, especially if you know that it's not something that you knew. And that's called claircognizance or clairaudience. It's very hard to differentiate between the two. I have those, both are my strongest gifts, and I'm not completely sure what's claircognizance and what's clairaudience. I think the clairaudience is when like you actually like hear a voice, even if it's your own telling you, whereas claircognizance, it just comes out of your mouth and you're like, where did that come from? How did I know that? But anyway, so I have on occasion heard other voices. I heard Jesus talk to me a couple of times. I heard him laugh once when I made a joke about him. Oh, I was really glad you found it funny. But I don't usually hear someone else. But you know what? Even my stepdaughter, who is not like strongly religious or spiritual, she's more agnostic, where she's not really sure what she thinks. She once heard what I believe was Archangel Michael, but she did say it was clearly a distinct male voice. And he told her not to turn because a car came flying. So you do hear other voices sometimes. The best way that I can tell you to understand the difference between if it's your ego center or your higher self is if it makes you feel afraid, if it makes you nervous or anxious or fearful, that's your ego center. And if it makes you feel calm and peaceful and confident and you just, it's like, you know when people say like, I just know, like that's your intuition and your higher self, okay? So make sure you work on learning how to properly discern those, and you can practice, okay? The next bullet point on the moon card is about shedding the 3D, which I was already talking about, right? As you work through that process of shedding your ego center and going through ego death and shedding the 3D conditioning, well, it could be the 3D conditioning, and it could also be like 3D aspects of your life as well. You need to focus on staying grounded and emotionally regulated, no matter what ups and downs you may go through. That reminds me, when I was talking about the, ego center and higher self, emotions are tricky. So the ego center is more often connected to your brain. It's your thinking and your overthinking. Your intuitive center is connected to your heart and your heart center, especially your etheric heart center. Emotions are connected to both, and they can be super confusing sometimes because we feel our emotions through our heart, but our brain causes them to like go haywire and react. So you have to be very careful with emotions because they can be either, and they can pull you down a rabbit hole that you don't want to go down. So when it says stay grounded and emotionally regulated, that's because you don't want your emotions to go out of control and lead you down a fear-based rabbit hole, okay? So that's when you want to control overthinking as well, because overthinking can lead to becoming emotionally dysregulated, and before you know it, you're freaking out for no reason. And one more bullet point. There may be situations where truth is obscured. More is going on than it seems. Now, this can be applied in many different ways. So that is absolutely 100% true about what is happening in the world right now. So on a collective level, on an ascension level, that is something that everyone needs to understand. There are things going on with truths that are hidden and obscured, and you're not going to know everything, and you're not going to find out everything yet. And it's one example of where spirit calls for blind faith and trust and using your intuition and discernment, okay? You need to understand that we live on a world, and I believe that it's all 3D planets, where the light is not solely in charge. The light is battling with the dark for control over the planet, and the dark does have a significant degree of power and control. And particularly on Earth, the dark has been in control since the fall of Atlantis. And while the light, it's not, okay, basically, it's not like this, where the light's up here and the dark is down here. It's an even playing field. And right now, we're in the process of the light taking control. But religion has people believing that the light has always been in control. It's real, if anything, it's been more like this, where in many circumstances, the light is enough in control to make sure that things go the right way, or to make sure that things go the right way. But things always go the way that they are according to the soul contracts. And sometimes the soul contracts have negative events happening because it's part of the lessons and it's part of the experiences that the soul signed up for. And that's where people might think that God's not in charge, or how did God let that happen, or stuff like that. But really, it's part of the soul contract that the soul signed up for as part of the experiences and part of the lessons that they are going to go through. And we need to be able to understand that and not like hold it against God, and understand that it's not even necessarily a case of the light versus the dark. That is even like built into the soul contract. And in fact, something else that I have learned is that because of how that works, because of how soul contracts are, in that the soul signs up for certain events and situations and experiences, the play between the light and the dark is really more about which aspects of or beings of the light are orchestrating the positive events, and which negative aspects of the dark or entities are orchestrating the negative events. And then it looks like this polarity between light and dark, but they're all actually working in the same way of carrying out the soul contracts that were agreed upon before even incarnating in this lifetime. So that's something else to take into consideration. But it's a very complex interplay of things, because while that's true, we know that there are dark beings, dark people, dark beings who are actively, trying to control the planet. Is it part of their soul contracts? Yes. Are they trying to work outside of their soul contracts also? Yes. You have multiple different viewpoints of all of this. The 3D viewpoint is just straightforward, like evil person A is doing X, Y, and Z, and good person A is trying to stop them or whatever. Then the 4D perspective is that evil person A is possessed or being controlled by an entity. And, or let's say being controlled by reptilians who have been running the planet and are trying to maintain that control. And good person A is trying to get rid of the reptilians, trying to get rid of the entities and prevent, the dark agenda. And then the 5D perspective is, it's all part of the bigger grand design and grand plan, and it's part of the soul contracts. This person agreed to this before incarnating. This person agreed to this before incarnating. They are playing out what was already planned, agreed upon, and decided in the higher spiritual realms, and it's all already determined, is in the process of playing out in our world. All of those are true. Each perspective is very different, and all of them are true. So you have to go through this process of coming to understand all of that and learning how to accept it as well as understand it. And the more that you do, the further along you get on your ascension path, the more you integrate your higher self, the more you stay on the higher timeline. The people who are strictly in that 3D thinking, they're strictly on the lower timeline and not ascending. The people who are able to fully understand the 5D perspective and are able to maintain that higher level of understanding to a point where they're not rattled. They don't get emotionally reactive or upset about things happening because they understand the higher perspective of it all. They understand that the soul contracts, they understand the way it all works, and that there's a bigger plan at place, or a bigger plan at play, excuse me. They are not easily rattled when things happen, whether it's in their individual lives or in the community or collectively, globally, whatever it is, because they understand the bigger picture and they stay in that higher frequency, and they're pretty firmly on the higher timeline. Well, let me say though that it is normal to fluctuate between the timelines, because we do live on a 3D planet that fucks with us sometimes. But anyway, and then those in the 4D, it's like they have one foot in each. They have awakened enough from the 3D to be able to see all of the viewpoints, but they're not yet fully able, they're not yet fully able to stay in the 5D perspective and stay in the understanding of the bigger picture of it all. It's not that they don't get it, but it's that their emotions are still controlling them a lot. Their overthinking is still controlling them a lot. They could have entities affecting them still. They could have 3D influences affecting them. They basically still have cords and connections and cycles and lessons connecting to the lower 3D timeline that keep pulling them away from the 5D one. Like, they're trying to stay in the 5D and they're trying to keep, progressing, but they still have stuff that's pulling them back, and they haven't yet figured out how to not allow it to, basically, to some extent. I think it's a combination of that and also still continuing to learn more about the higher spiritual perspective and fully understand it and embrace it. That's the best that I can explain it at this stage. But anyway, so that's the difference. And then if you want to look at what's going on around you, best way I can explain that too is You have the completely unawake people who are in the 3D path. You have the fully awakened and enlightened people on the 5D path. And then anybody who knows anything about truthers, they're on that 4D path. The truthers, what frustrates me with the truthers is that they usually are not seeing the spiritual perspective. There's a lot of truthers who get what's going on, but they still have a lot to go through on the spiritual awakening side of it. And so they get it, but don't really fully understand it yet. And they definitely don't see that higher perspective as much. And they get really stuck on details of the things happening in the world that is the truth and is leading them down their awakening path, but there's still a lot of the spiritual knowledge to integrate. And that ends up driving me crazy. I try to always go back to spirit to get clarity on different things. But anyway, that's another topic. So when it comes to the world, it's important to understand all of these things of what's going on from the different perspectives, and that you don't always see the full picture. You don't always see the whole truths. Okay. And then, on an individual level, sometimes you can have good things that are coming or meant to happen or in the process of happening that are a secret from you, that the truth is being obscured because you're meant to be surprised. It's meant to be unexpected, or you're simply not meant to know about it. You're not meant to know what's going to happen. So sometimes spirit keeps secrets, or even the people around you keep secrets because it's a good thing and you're not supposed to know yet. Sometimes it's bad things. Sometimes people are lying to you and truths are being hidden. It can be both, to be honest. It's really important not to jump to conclusions and to trust your own discernment. Now, I do want to say, I was thinking about this before I started recording, that one of the things that I have learned from doing readings, from getting readings, and from my own just conversations with spirit, spirit tells you what you need to know in that moment. Pretty much everyone, I think, believes, because they want to, that you will always get 100% truth from spirit. That's just simply not true. And there's multiple reasons for it. First of all, are you going through an advisor, a reader, or are you asking yourself? That makes a difference, because if you're going through the advisor or reader, it depends on what spirits they're talking to. You can literally get different answers from different spirits, like a loved one, an angel, an ascended master, your own higher self. They can all give different answers. And actually, I'm going to give you a perfect example. Last year, almost an exact year ago, actually, I was ordering new glasses because I wear contacts. And I was really torn between these two different pairs. And I was leaning a little bit more towards one, but I really liked the way the second pair looked too. And I was really more like, should I get both or should I just get the one? I realized I wouldn't have given up the first one. But anyway, but I was so torn that I decided to ask spirit. And first I asked Jesus, because you guys probably know that I usually talk directly to Jesus. And he told me to get both. And for whatever reason that I can't remember now, I decided to ask my higher self and to ask my twin flame's higher self. My higher self told me to only get the pair that I was leaning towards. My higher self told me to get one pair and to get the pair I was leaning towards. My twin flame's higher self told me to get one pair and get the second pair. And like I said, Jesus told me to get both. And I was like, what the fuck? And then I realized, like, it was like a year ago, so I don't remember exactly the thought process, but a combination of me asking questions and it just coming to me, I realized that my twin flame would prefer, you know what? I think I was trying to figure out why I was getting 3 different answers. And I was asking each questions. I was asking my higher self questions. I was asking his higher self questions, and I was asking Jesus questions. And his higher self like said like he would like the second pair better, and my higher self said, well, this is the pair you like better. And I said to Jesus, you told me to get both because he prefers the second one and I prefer the first one, didn't you? And he's like, yep. And I ordered both. I honestly was going down that path anyway because I liked both. And I'm glad that I did, because the second pair is lighter on my nose. So at home, I wear the second pair, and if I go out, I wear the first pair. But anyway, at some point, I asked him, I think it was within a month, because I had the samples. There you go. I had the samples. So I sent him the pictures and asked him. And sure as shit, he said he preferred the second pair. And I cracked up. I cracked up laughing because it was like proof that his higher self told me the truth. And also, you know, to me, it validated the whole thing, the whole conversation. My higher self, his higher self, and Jesus. I'm like, that's crazy. I had already seen the difference, like when I would ask an angel, an archangel, a question versus Jesus. I had already seen the difference in getting different answers. And I know for a fact, like entities for sure will give you different answers, and ghosts, because the ghosts are like 4D. Loved ones are higher, but they're still not the same as angels or ascended masters, you know? They're just higher selves. They're just higher selves of loved ones. So literally, you will get a different answer depending on who you're talking to. And that in galactic beings, you will get different answers from galactic beings as well. That's what I have never been drawn to communicate with galactic beings. Not that I have a problem with them, but I always felt like I want to get the most accurate information. So I'm going to go like directly to source if I can. And it took me a while to do that. Like I started with angels and then archangels, and when I got frustrated with the angels, I got frustrated with the archangels, I should say, in 2022, I think it was. Was it 2022 or 2023? Well, actually, I think it was 2022. I don't know where the time has gone, but I got frustrated with them because I felt like they were giving me mixed information, because they would tell me something and then I would find out that it was not exactly 100% accurate, and I would get upset with them. And then I later realized, sorry, I really need to crack my knuckle. There we go. I later realized that the reason why they were telling me stuff that wasn't true or wasn't completely accurate was because I was asking too much and they didn't want me to know those answers. But because I was like demanding an answer, they gave me one. They gave me an answer because I was insisting, but I was not meant to know that. So they didn't tell me the truth because I wasn't supposed to know what it was. So that's something that's important to realize. Like, you can ask too much and you can, you know, go too far. Like, you're not supposed to know everything. And if you're asking something you're not supposed to know, you're not going to get an accurate answer. So I forgive them good now. But trust me when I tell you, especially as someone who is OCD and was more controlling, like, that was a rough period for me in accepting that, because like I felt like, if I'm, you know, asking you a question, I expect the truth. And I felt like I have the right to ask. I have the right to know. But it doesn't matter how anybody feels about that. Like, you're not going to be told what your higher self and your spirit team knows that you're not supposed to know yet. And they know better. You need to trust that they know better. So that's one reason why you won't. By the way, I did switch to Jesus, and now I have switched to source. Like, Divine Father started communicating with me last year, and I did confirm with him that Divine Father is source. He used that term in connecting with me, and I say he because it's what's most comfortable and natural for me. But he also confirms that he has many names depending on each person's belief system. And he could just be source. He could just be creator. Like, he could be Divine Mother. That's how I most easily connect, having grown up Christian. But anyway, so I confirmed like a bazillion different times and ways, I'm communicating directly with Source now. Jesus is always here too, but the reason why Source introduced itself to me to start communicating directly was because my soul group had to deal with a lot of spiritual warfare last year, and I learned that just as there are good ascended masters, there are also evil ascended masters. And there are evil ascended masters who try to trick people pretending to be Jesus or Yeshua and other ascended masters and beings. And so even though Spirit assured me that I was never tricked, I do believe that part of the reason why Source started communicating with me directly was as a just in case, just to make sure. And I will say that that was like over the summer, and there was a lot that happened the last half of the year, so I can see why. But anyway, so that's my story. But going back to as far as whether or not you're getting 100% truth from Spirit, well, there's one reason why. Who else? Like, that was just me. Other practitioners or other readers and advisors who you might talk to, like, who knows who or what they're connecting with. You know, I know that a lot of people believe that they're connecting with the right spirits, but they can, one possibility is that they're being tricked, that just like I told you just now, there are evil ascended masters who pretend to be Jesus. So literally there are people who can be talking to who they think is Jesus, but it's actually an evil ascended master pretending to be Jesus. And they don't know how to protect themselves correctly when they're connecting. I actually know a girl who was trying to speak with Jesus, and she knew that she was getting interference, and she kept trying, and she ended up getting herself possessed. And I know that I had to clear that one. I don't know what happened after that, because she went her own way because she had been infiltrated and wasn't seeing clearly anymore. But, you know, that's her path and her journey. And her soul agreed to all of that before incarnating, for her to experience it and for her to learn from it. So that's the 5D perspective on that. 4D perspective, she was possessed. 5D perspective, her soul agreed to go through this and to learn from it. See what I mean? So anyway, so some people are infiltrated by entities pretending to be good spirits. And then some people, like there are other religions and belief systems that connect with other types of spirits that they believe to be either good or safe to connect with, but in actuality, they are not. And I say this carefully because I don't want it to come across like a religious thing. This is just what Spirit has told me, what Source has told me, okay? And I don't even want to like get into examples because I don't want to like come across and offend anybody, but just know that to be true. Like, there are spirits out there that readers connect with because it's part of the belief systems that they grew up with, that they believe to be safe to communicate with, but they're not. They're either neutral or they're negative, and the people just don't realize it. Even neutral spirits, the thing about neutral spirits is, while they're not evil spirits, they, being neutral, they're not of light either, so they don't really care. They'll just like say whatever, and they don't care because they're detached and they're neutral. And sometimes there's trickster ones that like want to mess with you, and sometimes they just don't care enough. They're just giving you an answer. And then you can also look at it from the 5D perspective, that that's what you're supposed to be told at that time. So reasons why you wouldn't be told the truth. So we've covered that you're not supposed to know. Different spirits will tell you different things. Who and what are you connecting with, or is your advisor connecting with? And if you're doing it yourself, there's also the question of if you are connecting safely and you know how to connect safely to make sure that you don't have any interference, and to make sure that you're communicating with the right spirits and getting the most accurate information. When I communicate with Spirit now, I literally, with every single question, will say true or false, and is this 100% accurate, and things like that, because I know how easily spirit communication can be infiltrated at any time. even when you have protections, even when you say all the right intentions starting out, it's so easy for an entity or a neutral spirit to slip in. I cloak myself now as well. And I don't just cloak myself when I communicate with spirit, I cloak myself every single day, as spirit told me to, because of negative spirits watching. So, so anyway, is there anything else in terms of, I know I said you're not always getting the most accurate information. Of course, it's how accurate the reader is as well, how well they're able to connect to your energy. I can't think of anything else. I think the main thing is simply that you're just not always supposed to know everything. And the reality is that spirit can tell us whatever they want. For a lot of the time, how would we know if it's accurate or not? You are choosing to believe that it's accurate because you want to, and like maybe some of it resonates, so therefore all of it must be right, correct? But spirit tells you what your angels and your good spirit guides and spirit team tell you what you need to know in that moment. The exact answer may vary also depending on who you're talking to, and they each have their own reasons. I felt that the angels were guiding you to stay on your soul path. I did feel that with Jesus, I was getting the most accurate because of, I really had a conversation with him to start off with, like, I need to be able to trust you and trust the information you're giving me, especially as a reader myself. And just from my experiences communicating with him, I did feel that I was getting the most accurate, but I can't say that I was 100% of the time. Another thing that came to me just now, probably the last point on this, is that you, the multiple thought processes all at once made my brain forget. Sometimes they're testing you. So this entire process, which is actually my next point, was going to be about, we're at a major point in time of needing to learn discernment. And this process of learning how to listen to your intuition and learning how to use your spiritual gifts, your clairvoyance, your clairaudience, your claircognizance, clairsentience, etc., etc., etc. Spirit, like, it's like a school. Like, spirit takes you through lessons in order to help you learn how to use your gifts and enhance them and help them grow. So spirit tests you sometimes too. One time I had someone ask me, why does this reader, who, like, she trusts completely, had been talking to for years, had always been accurate as far as she was aware of, why did she get this random, bizarre reading that made no sense? And I asked spirit, why is this reading so off from this advisor that she trusts? And spirit said, that she's being tested to trust her intuition and to trust her own discernment. And so, like, you can even have, like, I am also one of the first people to say, and I say it all the time, like, no reader is 100% accurate all the time, simply because we're human and we make mistakes and we don't always connect, perfectly with every single person. But then add to it that, spirit doesn't always tell us the most accurate answer because you're either not supposed to know, or because they're testing the person, the client, or whoever it is, for them to learn to trust their own discernment and their own intuition. So you might get a reading that is 90-95% accurate but has one thing off because spirit is testing you to trust your intuition on that one thing. So there's various reasons why it might be that way. And it also means you don't need to throw out the baby with the bathwater, whether that's the advisor or it's your own, practice of connecting with spirit. It's all lessons. And that's what you need to realize. Like, I would get really upset sometimes. I would get really mad at spirit and upset when I would get false information or a bad reading, because I felt, like I said, if I'm doing this work, I need to know that I can trust it. But it did take some time, and for me to fully like wrap my head around it all and understand that, you know, it happens this way for a reason, whether it's teaching me or it's teaching the client, or we're just not supposed to know yet, or whatever it is. And that's important for everybody to understand. Okay. And as far as the importance of discernment right now, especially because of everything that's happening in the world, you have to, like, I got this message with a friend of mine a year ago. It is critically important at this time in the ascension process and the battle between good and evil that is playing out on earth right now. It is critically important to be able to discern between what is truth and what is not. And that's because there is so much false information out there right now. I mean, you literally have the lower timeline that is just like an ocean of false information that so many people believe, like blindly believe. And then you have, even on the ascension path, you have the spiritualists who, is it a spiritualist that's connecting to the wrong spirits or wrong beings for guidance? Is it a spiritualist that is not able to discern between true and accurate information? I mean, I see a lot of spiritualists who believe things about the lower timeline, believe that to be true instead of the higher timeline, because while they may be spiritualists, while they may be awakening, they still have more to learn. They still are not yet able to discern certain things. They still have more 5D knowledge that they're integrating for whatever reason. So there are even spiritualists who are not able to discern clearly between the different timelines. And then you also have the spiritualists who are getting infiltrated by entities, that they're not protecting themselves properly, and they have entities that are attaching to them, they have entities that are feeding them false information, and they don't realize they're connecting to the wrong spirit. Some of them are getting possessed also. And then you also have plants. There are some people in the spiritual community who have intentionally been placed there to plant false information. And they know it. There's the ones who are spreading false information and they don't know it. They're connecting to the wrong spirits with unknowingly. And there's people who are doing it knowingly because they've been planted either by evil people or evil spiritual beings. And they're fulfilling, that's their soul contract. That's what they came here to do. So that is another thing to be aware of. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else. There's literally so much. So yeah, basically the necessity of learning how to discern between your ego center, the fear-based energy, the lower timeline information, the little devils running around trying to trick people, and your higher self, your spirit team, your intuition. It's so, so, so important to be able to do that now and to learn how to do that and to know, to know who you can trust, but at the same time, to also see and feel them clearly, because there are some spiritual teachers that I used to follow who, at different points in time, I saw and felt a shift in their energy, and I started to question it. And at some point with each of them, either information came to me or I talked to spirit myself, and I discovered that they had been infiltrated and they were no longer safe sources. And, you know, one of them, I was always intrigued by the information that he would share, because he would go into in-depth information about 4D stuff, 4D beings and galactics and stuff like that. And I found it very fascinating, but spirit told me that it was not safe to follow him anymore, even to read that information, because he had been infiltrated by draconians. So I unfollowed. And he was one that was like removing and blocking anybody who you didn't even have to argue with him. If you just like said something he didn't agree with, he would remove you or block you or something. He had gotten to that point. And I was like, But anyway, so my point is that even people that you trust, you have to be able to discern if something changes with them, because it's happening. Like it's an act. There are active efforts by the dark to infiltrate people in the spiritual community and spiritual teachers. So, or not even just spiritual teachers, even spiritual readers who might not be famous, might not have a large following, but they have people listening to them, they have people watching their readings. So there's just as much incentive by the dark to infiltrate them too and start spreading false information. Even if it's not global or collective information, maybe it's giving false readings to people. So you always have to be aware of that and focus on learning discernment right now, okay? Okay, clearly Spirit had other plans in terms of doing this quickly. I'm just gonna let it play out. Okay. Okay. Gemini. I think. And also Gemini is a twins. So to me, right away, that was validation on twin flames and soulmates, I will say, because this is not a twin flame deck. So this right here in the corresponding tarot is the Lover's card as well. So this card is a confirmation and a validation for you if you have any questions in your head about, like, is this person my soulmate? Is this person my twin flame? That alone is some validation and confirmation for you, okay? I think what immediately came to me was, I think, don't get caught up in overthinking. Don't think too much. Spirit is saying to focus on practicing healthy communication. Know that words are important, so you must use them wisely. Especially when you're communicating with your divine masculine. If you're not in union yet, words are important. Focus on healthy communication and think about what you say and how you say it very carefully, okay? I have always been very careful not to unintentionally provoke my divine masculine by saying something that would poke one of his wounds. I see a lot of people who get caught up in the 3D and the 4D thinking, and you know, they're like, this isn't fair, that isn't fair, whatever, I deserve this, etc., etc. Yeah, you could say all of that stuff, and it's true from the 3D perspective, from the 4D perspective, but do you want to cause your twin flame to run more because you're provoking their self-worth wounds by, by calling them out on their mistakes and their flaws, when nobody is perfect and everybody makes mistakes and everybody has flaws? Or this journey, the twin flame journey, is about embodying unconditional love. Now, that doesn't mean you put up with abuse. That doesn't mean you put up with ill treatment or toxic treatment. But what you do instead is you learn how to communicate in a healthy way, and you hold space for them while they heal and work through the wounds that cause them to behave badly sometimes, or it's not, I don't even want to say that cause them to make mistakes. Like, that's just a human thing. That's just a life thing. So yeah, you don't get caught up in that ego center thinking of they need to do things my way or whatever. I need to do things my way, or which is a control issue anyway, or focusing on exact behaviors that are really stemming from the wounds that are in the process of healing, and hold space for them while they work through their healing process and learn how to communicate with them in a healthy way, and be careful not to provoke the very wounds that are causing the separation in the first place, unless you just want more separation, unless you want to give up and move on. But are you a twin ray, or are you a twin flame or a twin flame master who is going to ascend in this lifetime? Learn how to control your emotions so you don't react emotionally. pay attention to what you say, pay attention to your thoughts as well, because your thoughts manifest your reality. I have a close friend who, she is in a very good place with her twin flame. And they've gotten to a point now, even though they're in separation and they live in separate countries, and there's a whole lot of stuff going on in both of their individual journeys and lives, and people involved and karmics and whatnot, they're in a good place in their relationship where they are able to communicate more, and they are able to give each other signs as well. And in their communication, my friend has learned that her exact thoughts and her exact daydreams and visualizations are literally going to her twin flame. So her twin flame is describing these things to her, and it's literally the exact same words, the exact same, visualizations. I don't know another word. The exact same daydreams, whatever you want to call it. And she realized, like, oh my gosh, like, I'm not just like, thinking, imagining myself, with her higher self. I'm not just imagining and not just imagining my union reality or whatever. I'm actually putting these thoughts into her head, or they're sharing them, or I'm actually picking up hers, or whatever it is. So it's actually been quite amazing to realize from what she's going through, what she's experiencing, how much how strong the telepathy is, basically. How strong the telepathy is, and how much her thoughts are literally manifesting the same in her twin. Even if it's not in the physical reality yet, because it can't be, it's still like in her psyche. So it has made us realize that there is far, far more in that mental and emotional connection than what we realize. Like, so many divine feminines, I hear it so much, so many divine feminines say, like, does my twin flame think about me as much? Does my twin flame even care? And just that there's so much. Do you understand how much the ego center and fear and doubt controls our brains? Do you realize how much? Don't overthink. The ego center, this is why we have to go through an ego death. The ego center, the little devils, the entities, whatever you want to call it, whatever it is, it controls our thought processes so much. We automatically jump to worst case conclusions and negative thinking, and we always assume the worst. People always assume the worst, and they always assume, because they don't have physical evidence. We have been conditioned to need physical evidence as proof of anything. And if we don't have that physical evidence, we assume the worst and assume that they don't feel the same, or that they don't think about us, or whatever. Like, I have come to realize that I'm pretty certain, because I don't have proof, but I'm pretty certain that times in the day when I just feel like I just want to daydream about my twin, and I feel like I could just lose time daydreaming about him, I'm pretty sure that he's thinking about me when I start thinking like that, because there are other times when I know for a fact that he's busy, when I don't think of him as much and I don't feel compelled to. And I don't remember what it was, but something more recently made me realize that I'm pretty sure that it's because of that mental connection. When he's thinking about me, I pick it up, I'm thinking about him more, and we're pulled together energetically. And when he's busy or I'm busy, we don't think about each other as much. And then also, twins usually pick up the sexual energy too. Like when one is masturbating, thinking about the other, they usually pick up that too. Now, I don't know that they pick up if they're being sexual with someone else. I feel like that would be like cruel and unusual punishment by spirit if that was the case. I have seen people say that they believe that they pick up their twin being sexual with like their karmic. But, are they jumping to that conclusion, or is it the truth? Like I said, I feel like that would be cruel and unusual punishment. I know that I don't pick up every single thing from my twin, and I know that he doesn't pick up every single thing from me, because especially when it comes to anxiety, that was how I realized that I picked up his emotions. But I've also learned that I don't pick up every time he has anxiety, because he told me that he was having panic attacks and I wasn't picking them up. So I knew that I wasn't picking them up for a reason. So I came to the conclusion that our higher selves like connect and have us feel each other's emotions when they want us to, when they want us to feel each other, or when they need us to for some reason, like whether I was supposed to feel it at certain times so that I would say something, or so that I would just know how he was, or if there's another reason. And then other times when maybe it was like a learning process that he was going through or something, I wasn't supposed to pick it up, because that's what they were about. They were about learning processes that he was going through and dealing with in his life. And I wasn't meant to feel every single time. So in any case, we pick up much more than we realize, but not necessarily every single thing either. So that's important to understand too. So that the whole point of that was pay attention to your thoughts, because they play a much stronger aspect in creating your reality than what you think. And then you could really go beyond that into manifestation and talking about how our thoughts really do create the world around us, create our reality. And the more trust you have in certain things and in spirit, the more you attract. The more positive you are, the more you attract opportunities, money, whatever it may be. It can be very specific too. And the more negative you are, the more you attract negative events and occurrences. Now that's another thing that's kind of tricky, because entities also cause those. So is it an entity, or is it your negative thinking? It's a complex world we live in. But that's also why it's important to be positive and optimistic. I used to prefer being a realist, so that you wouldn't be disappointed and you would have realistic expectations. But now I have come to realize that it's really actually more important to be optimistic, because then you can manifest the best outcome. If you're pessimistic, you're just attracting more negative and more negative events into your life. If you're realistic, yeah, you might not be disappointed, but you might just have like a mediocre life. And because realism kind of leans into pessimism, because you're expecting the worst, since we always expect the worst, right? So optimism really is attracting the best outcomes, and that's what's best. Okay, so I also channeled while I was on this that I'm feeling a connection with various symptoms of neurodivergence. When you or someone you know may be a little all over the place and struggle with focusing their thoughts, their speech, they can be, and this is also from the book as well on this card, there can be excitability, distracted easily, emotionally dysregulated, mood swings, flighty or flaky. This is emotional regulation, and healthy communication is very hard for them when they're like that. And this is when you need to make sure that this is Spirit's guidance, okay? This is when you need to make sure that you step back, whether it's yourself or somebody else that you're interacting with. You need to step back and make sure that you are seeing and understanding clearly for yourself, for the other person. And also, so first of all, that's like, say there's an incident going on, a disagreement or something like that. In that case, you need to step back. Like, don't just react. Take time to understand properly, and not just overreact, and not sit in that emotional dysregulation. Take time to balance yourself before continuing. And then also work on methods of learning how to regulate that. Neurodivergence is more and more and more and more prevalent these days for various reasons that I'm not going to get into. But it is more and more prevalent, and more people have it than they even realize. Never mind. More people have it than they even realize. So those symptoms that I just said, excitability, distracted easily, emotionally dysregulated, mood swings, flighty or flaky, struggle focusing, if you struggle with emotional regulation and healthy communication, take time to learn how to regulate this, regulate your emotions, and learn how to bring yourself back to center and balance yourself and ground yourself, okay? Now, last thoughts. The Gemini card is also speaking to a well of creativity that is looking to be tapped into. Don't be afraid to walk the unconventional path, because we are leaders of the new earth and we are meant to walk the unconventional path. We are meant to pave a new path, okay? I can't believe that we're at an hour and 25 minutes. I'm actually feeling guided to stop and start a new video. I don't know why exactly, but it does make sense that it shouldn't be like too crazy long anyway. So even though the messages do all connect back to each other, but I'm going to follow Spirit's guidance right now. And I'm going to go ahead and pause and post a part 1, and then I'll post a part 2. And hopefully it'll just be those, but we'll see. Okay. So next up we have Aquarius, not Aquarius. I know. That's why I said because the I know next. And then I will also, when I get to the end of the Black Moon astrology cards, I'm going to go into the Akashic Records and the Oracle of the Seven Energies to look at that internal energy check-in. I know so far it's been a lot ascension path related. I didn't talk as much about your individual twin flame journeys, but I hope you guys do also see the significance of these messages in relating with your twin flame on an individual level. All of these cards and all of these messages, they all connect to how you are interacting with your twin flame, how you're interacting with the people around you, and then expanding beyond that to the community and the collective, like the Twin Flame Collective, and the collective of people ascending, and then globally, what's happening in the world around us. And like I said, when I started this is really a blend from Spirit of everything. It's a blend of a twin flame reading, an ascension talk, and just overall guidance on everything. And so there's not this is all interspersed together. This whole thing and what's to come, it's all going to be, except for when I do the last 2 decks that I'm specifically looking at the twin flame journeys there. But this is all a blend together of what you need to know and understand for your soul's journeys and every aspect of that. Your twin flame connection, how you're moving forward in your life overall right now, as well as what's happening in the world at this time and in the ascension process. So just understand that and expect that as we go here, okay? So like I said, I'm gonna pause. I actually probably should get a drink anyway, and I will continue, okay?